The Filster Enigma is a revolutionary holster chassis system that completely divorces your holster and gun from your clothing, giving you unprecedented concealment whether in sweatpants or formal wear. It attaches to your AIWB holster via the wing and allows incredible flexibility for your concealed carry. Get yours at the link below.
They're in a lane kind of like ASP. They're in a lane that no one else is kind of in, and they're doing reporting that you can live with. It doesn't make you feel gross and want to take a hot shower when you're done reading it, because it's not slanted. It is straight, sane, sober, down the middle reporting. Stephen, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Stephen and I try to schedule these, and we scheduled this one a little late in the week, and I had kind of forgotten and made other plans, and now, so I haven't eaten yet, and we had a thing with a sponsor that went weird, so I had to do a bunch of editing, and it's been a whole thing. But I'm doing okay. I'm just, at this point, just hungry. I'm thinking about Jersey Mike's. I'm thinking about it. It's number 13.
Yeah, man. Number 13, Mike's Way, extra mayo. That's what I get.
Here's the secret.
Not a Jersey Mike's ad, by the way. But
some free advertising for Jersey Mike's. The move, if you haven't done it before, is to get the 13. If you like, all those different meats, it's like 5 or 6 kinds of meat. Have them put the meat and cheese on the flat top grill and let that sit for about 2 or 3 minutes. Melt the cheese, and it brings out the flavor of the meat. You got to try it once and let me know what you think. It's fantastic.
I could see that. Yeah, make it into a hot sub.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
basically.
Hot hoagie. So that's right. You are from Philly. It is a hoagie where you're from.
They should be calling it hoagies. They're supposed to be from Jersey.
Exactly. Yeah, you're right. All right, Jersey Mike's, get your act together. Start selling hoagies. All right. Well, so we have a couple stories regarding the NRA today. The first one is not great news. There is an article over at The Reload written by our own Stephen Gutowski entitled "Gun Control Groups Outraise NRA Political Operation in February." So I'm assuming this means that all of the sort of gun control groups that you've heard of, Everytown USA and that sort of thing, outraised them politically. Is this a new thing? Because I didn't realize that the NRA was consistently outraising them. So is this new, and what does it mean, do you think?
It is new. The NRA has consistently outraised and outspent the major gun control groups in political elections. Mm-hmm. So we're talking about groups. All these groups are made up of a number of legal entities, right? The NRA is really like 6 or 7 different legal entities, and they do that because you can do different things with different entities. The tax implications of them are different, and so they have a 501c3, a 501c4. They have they actually have a bunch of 501c3s. That's like what you would think of as a charity, where you give money and it's tax deductible and so forth, and they're only allowed to use that money on certain things. So in the NRA, the stuff that most people really like about the NRA is the gun safety training, education programs, competitive shooting programs. That stuff's all in different 501c3s. They own like a big range that they operate, and that's its own legal entity. That's a 501c3. The membership stuff, we talk a lot about NRA membership, right? That's actually the 501c4, which is an organization where they don't have to disclose their donors. You don't get a tax write-off if you donate to that, but it's something where they don't have to say who's giving money to it. And then there's more rules about how you use the money. Like the C3s can't spend on political stuff, right? The C4 can, but only in certain ways, right? Issue advocacy. So NRA membership, when you buy a membership to the NRA, that money goes to the 501c4. Okay. And then you have this sort of political groups, the strictly political groups, there's political action committees, and then what people call super PACs. And so those are the groups that we're talking about with this, the political action committees and the super PACs. And they can spend money by giving it directly to candidates, or they can make in what are called independent expenditures, right? Where they can go out and like buy advertising. That's usually the NRA spends a lot of advertising, attacking people that disagree with its agenda, right? Very common thing. You see this in every major political group that exists.
Sure.
And so one thing that you can tell, though, with the PAC is how much money they're raising each month. They have to report it to the Federal Elections Commission. And the PAC has to disclose who its donors are. and how much money they brought in. There's limits on how much you can give to a PAC, but they can do a little more. They can like give directly to candidates. Super PAC, there's no limit on how much money you can give it, but it can only do independent expenditures, so like buying ads and things.
Mhm.
Anyway, right now, those political groups, the NRA raised about just under $500,000 in February through those entities. Whereas if you look at the major gun control groups, Everytown, like you mentioned, Giffords is really the biggest player in this, the Giffords
Mhm.
PAC on the gun control side. And then Brady would be another one that's pretty small, but they're in there as well. Giffords itself almost outraised the NRA. It was about
Wow.
$20,000 short of the NRA's total, but you add in the 200,000 or so that Everytown raised, and the 60,000 or so that I believe off the top of my head here that Brady raised, and basically the gun control groups, they add those three together, and you're getting nearly $750,000 in fundraising for February. So they're outraising them, and I guess to circle back to your original question here, that was not always the case, and has not usually been the case. The NRA has outraised and outspent the gun control groups in this arena, the political realm, for a long time. And really, there was only one election cycle in recent memory where that didn't happen. That was 2018. 2016, they massively outspent the gun control groups. 2020, even with their sort of corruption scandal started in 2019, 2018, 2019, and even with that going on, they were still outraising, outspending these major gun control groups combined. And the same thing was true in 2022 as well, in
Mhm.
the midterm election then. But doesn't appear like that's going to be the case this time. And on top of that, if you just compare how they're doing now to how they did in the previous presidential elections, the last two presidential elections, which are good analogs because we have the same candidates running
Right.
again. Um, uh, but in 2016, the NRA raised and spent more than $50 million, which was a record for them. 2020, they didn't do as well. They came in just under 30 million. And in the Februarys for both of those election cycles, the NRA raised significantly more than they raised this February. So we're at under 500,000 this February. If you go back to 2020, February 2020, they raised about 900,000.
That's a
And
big
if you go
difference.
back to 2016, they raised over 1.3 million just in
Wow.
February.
All right, so two questions, two-parter. First question is there any way for us to quantify, or do you have any sense for how much the recent legal problems and civil suits and lawsuits have had to do with this? Are we losing membership in the NRA? Is that part of the reason? The other question, again, I don't know if you would have an answer to this, but is there any way to know if the people that were giving their money to the NRA are maybe finding another group, maybe a local group, or some other way to facilitate this sort of legislation and education, or do we know?